Hey, this is Matt Roberts, Director of Scouting for Titan Scouting. We're going to address a topic right now that has been brought to my attention quite a bit. A lot of questions have been asked about it, and it's confusing a lot of athletes, a lot of parents. That is the gap year. What is the gap year, and how does it affect you? Well, believe it or not, it's still affecting you today, and we're going to touch on that. The gap year was instituted because of COVID. It allows students, for example, a 2020 grad in college whose eligibility was affected adversely because of the lockdown with COVID. It allows them to go for one more year of eligibility, get that extra money, even though they'll graduate from school as a 2020 graduate, they can then go a post-grad year, but they can still play their sport for one more year, which might help them either A, just fulfill the dream that they want to fulfill, or B, get noticed by a pro team so they don't lose that 1 year, which is quite valuable, especially near the end if you're on the fringe. Some pro teams know who you are, they know what you can bring to their team, but there's others who still have to see more from you, and people can flourish in that last year. So these students are taking that gap year. Well, the gap year, it does not only affect the class of 2020 who will now play their sports through 2021, it also affects 2021 grads, 22 grads, 23 grads, all the way back. So the freshmen can get affected as well, 2023 grads, by the gap year. Now, what happens there? Well, here's what happens. Every class is moving forward a year, if they choose to do so. You don't have to. The further back you're going to go, like your 2023 is your freshman, they're less inclined to take an extra full year for eligibility, because at that point they're like, well, I've been in school for 4 years, so I really want to go for 5 unless I really want to. But if they're on a paid athletic scholarship, then yes, they're going to want to take that extra year most likely. So your 2023 grad will become a 2024 grad. Basically, that's what's going to happen. Now, every time those students take that extra year, what that does is it fills that class, the following class, with more athletes. So your 2020s become 2021s. Now your 2021 incoming class of high school students, they have fewer slots because now 2020 has taken over 2021 slots. 2022, becoming 2023, for example, will take over the 2023 slots. And it's a cascading effect all the way back. 2020 becomes 21, 21 becomes 22, 22 becomes 23, 23 becomes 24. So we're looking at about a 4-year window of this cascading effect of the gap year, and it's going to hurt high school athletes. Case in point, I was working with a player whose senior year was canceled for football. Father came to me and said, we are not getting anything from any schools. Now, let me explain this, because coaches or parents are freaking out, going, why aren't the coaches talking to me? I don't understand. Well, it's hitting everybody, and here's why. College coaches, when it first started, we were marketing athletes to schools, and they were getting tons of hits early on. In early 2020, so March, April, May, June, July, up through that, plenty of hits. But then the school year started and they couldn't open. Now the coaches thought, let's go on for a few months and then it'll be better by September or better by the fall. But they just kept it going. So the whole COVID thing kept going on for a year and a half. Now over a year and a half, and it's still going strong. And they're not going to let up anytime soon, right? So those coaches then were stuck, and they went, this is college coaches. They say, what are we going to do now? We have to get athletes, but we can't recruit a lot of kids out of the area. You see, your coaches, they tend to recruit in their backyard. That's the most common thing. So if you're, for example, a Jersey athlete or Jersey college, you're going to recruit mostly in New Jersey area because those are the kids you see the most. It's closer, it's in your backyard, and people want to, in-state tuition's cheaper. People don't want to travel so far, so it's much easier for you to get your in-state kids, and you'll see them. You hear about them. You've been following them since 8th grade. In some cases, you know who they are. But also your Jersey schools, for example, would go to Pennsylvania or New York or Delaware and recruit kids from those schools too. So they couldn't do that during COVID. They couldn't travel to see kids as much as they wanted to. And for a while, they couldn't travel at all. So they were restricted on who they could get. So here's how the schools worked it out. They would try to grab as many in-state kids as they possibly could. And if they had initial interest, strong interest, and were pretty dead set on a kid from, say, Pennsylvania or Delaware, then they would make the offer to that kid if they already knew who they were. But that hurts a lot of other kids who had that opportunity to kind of slide in there. And people who they had visibility on will then get pushed aside because they have to handle what they have to handle. So got restrictions on recruiting. And then you look at the extra kids coming on and taking that extra year because of the gap year. Now the rosters are filled and they can even take fewer kids because they have budgets they have to meet. You see, when a kid takes the extra year, a 2021, for example, decides they want to go 2022 now in college. When a kid takes that extra year, if they're having a scholarship, carries the money with it. So now the team is burdened with another scholarship, more athletic money. Academic money is academic money, but there's athletic money and then there's academic money. You have just so much athletic money that can fill in for a kid, and the rest can be augmented with academic money. But the schools don't have a whole lot of that either because that carries from year to year as well. So the schools are strapped in terms of budget. Look, we've lost work at some schools for filming in some cases because they don't have the budget this year to take care of that part of their need. So they have to focus on the athletes. It's just the way it is. I've talked with coaches a number of times. I've heard of coaches saying, I have a packed roster. I got 60 kids. I'm bringing back 8. One baseball team told me I have 8 returning infielders right now, which is a lot. They can't bring in any more. One team was 7. I was marketing a catcher in baseball. They're 7 catchers deep right now. 7 deep. That's how many they have. And they have to put this unknown catcher, unknown commodity, somewhere in the ranking order. But they have to see, is this unknown commodity worth the money over a kid who we already know that we have and has already provided or performed for us? So this, I'm not saying, oh, poor colleges, but it is kind of tough for the colleges to deal with all this because this is something unknown. This is unprecedented. This has never been done before, and it's screwing everybody up. Here's an example. I had an athlete whose father came to me over the summer and said, look, I need you to market my kid. He was an offensive lineman out of Virginia. Now, Virginia canceled their entire fall sports season, all of it. Unlike states like New Jersey or PA, they had some fall sports. They canceled it all in Virginia, right? So he had nothing. And the schools that were interested before just dropped off. They just disappeared. That's what happens during COVID. I had 2 baseball players, for example, that had 26, each had about 24 to 26 schools interested in each kid. I think it was like 22 for one and 24 for the other, something like that. So each kid had a lot of interest, and this is back in July, September of 2020 in the heat of COVID. But then those kids, those coaches, just dropped off the longer it took. So now those kids are left like, what are we going to do? This young man, this lineman, we marketed him, and we had 16 schools. They wanted to go straight Division I. We had 16 schools respond and were interested in this kid. That's great. 16, that's a lot of schools. However, there was no money. It was preferred walk-on. Preferred walk-on, as you know, is you bring you in as a walk-on. You're going to make the team, but you still have to pay the tuition for at least that first year, and then they reevaluate you for a scholarship in the preceding years or succeeding years. So at least he got to a Division I school and he gets to play and he has to pay for 1 year of tuition. Then they can reevaluate and try to offer him a scholarship. That's at least something. But For other schools, they don't have that option. Other sports don't have that option. Other schools don't have that option. It just depends on what they have. They can always do preferred walk-on, but it's also a matter of slots. How many slots do you have on the team? Football teams are larger. Baseball, basketball teams are smaller, so they don't have as many slots. So they have to be restricted on what they can bring on board. So when you have kids who have these opportunities, and then the opportunities just fizzle out real quick, they just disappear, it's not personal, it's straight business. And that's what my job is as the director of scouting here and dealing with my clients. It's all business for me. I understand where you're coming from with your kids. I understand that for you, it's your kid, it's personal, and it means a lot to you, and you don't want to see your kids stuck. The kids get confused, the parents get upset. No one loves your kid more than you do, but the colleges don't care. What I mean is they don't care about your kid the way you care about your kid. They're caring about, can your kid help them win a national championship? A. B, do they have the money for your kid? C, which is actually more of a B, does your kid academically qualify for their school, and can they get him or her as much academic money as possible? That's why grades are so important. The more academic money they can get, the less athletic money they have to give them, which helps them get a deal. And if it's D3, it's all academic money anyway. So are your grades good enough? But do they have the money for your kid? Do they have the slots for your kid? Can they budget that? Just because it's academic money at a Division III school, it does not mean that they're just like carte blanche grabbing everybody they possibly can. No, they don't do that. They have a certain number of slots. And is your kid better than who they've already seen? Like I said earlier, is your kid better than who they've already seen on their roster? We got 7 kids at this position. Is your kid better than all these kids who we've been looking at and playing with now for a few years? If he's not or she's not, they move on. That's just the business side of things. And you have to understand how that works. Now, I had parents ask me, they go, I don't understand why, so they don't care about the high school kids. The colleges don't care. They're not doing anything for them. I said, they don't have to do anything for you. Look at me. Your kid is in high school. Your kid is in high school, a student athlete, not a college athlete. Okay? So unless your kid has signed a letter of intent or is actually going to a school, colleges don't care, and they don't have to. They're worried about their budgets, their rosters, their jobs, their school. Some high school kid, they come and they go, and they're all over the place. And they're worth a dime a dozen in the grand scheme of things. Let's be real, guys. There's very few kids that are invaluable to a college. You're all replaceable. You really are. There's very, very few that are just like, we have to have you. Those guys get snapped up like that. Okay? I say guys as everybody, not just meaning boys. Those athletes get snapped up right away. Okay? So, the colleges don't want to worry about a high school athlete. They don't care. What you should be concerned with are the high schools, those people in high school who should be educating your kids about the gap year. I've been preaching this for a year to all of my athletes and their parents. Some get it, some don't. Some listen, some don't. Some don't want to hear what I have to say. That's just the nature of the beast. It's just the way it is. But most of them kind of do, because I make it sensible. Okay? It makes sense. Your high schools should have been educating the students about the gap year. It should have come right down from the school, and when they're doing all that online training, it should have been very simple. Let's do a flash course, record a YouTube video if they have to, for all the students to explain what the gap year is and how it's going to affect your kids and the recommendations for doing so. But the schools don't do that, because in the grand scheme of things, and I'm not putting down all the schools, because there's some schools who actually care, but most of you, I'd say care, but actually know what they're doing. Most high schools don't really know how recruiting works. They understand they get the kid the grades and try to get the kid in school for applying, and you go to your guidance office for that. You have coaches who do have an idea how it works, and some of them are pretty good at it, but most of your coaches just don't know, and they don't take the time because it's a full-time job. They just think recruiting is going to work itself out. Recruiting is an aggressive process. So basically, most of you, or not all of them, but a good majority of high school coaches, I'm not picking on all of them, so if you're going to get offended, you shouldn't, because if you don't fall into this category, then you shouldn't get offended. All right? But I'm a straight shooter. A good number of your high school coaches sit there and say, the coaches are going to come to me, got it. I don't have to market my kid. I don't have to send out emails. I don't have to be aggressive. I don't have to talk to coaches. I don't have to call them. They just sit back and let the coaches come. Like the proud papa. Just go sit back and let the coaches come and find my kid. But that's not how it works. It might work for the A-list kids, the big name kids, the real hot talent that everyone knows about. But for all the other kids, the ones that can go D2, D3, small D1, the undiscovered gems, it doesn't work that way. That's where someone like me comes in. And that someone like me also educates you on the gap year. I contacted the NCAA legal department. I do this. Call their law office. Every time there's a big question, I call them to get it from the horse's mouth. So I asked them about the gap year. And I said, what do we have to expect? How's it working? And they explained it. And I kind of understood it. And they said, that's the first time I learned that it's going to go through all 4 years. It wasn't just for the seniors who were supposed to graduate in 2020, it was for every year before that. So as we talked for about an hour about this topic, the representative at the law office, the NCAA legal, said it's probably not going to balance out for about 5 or 6 years. And she was right. About 5 or 6 years, if you stop and think about it. 2020s become 2021s, 21s become 22, 22 becomes 23, 23 becomes 24. So guess what? That's 4 years already. Now your 25s come in, they're still going to be adversely affected for the next 4 years by those other classes who took that extra year. And some colleges may or may not be offering a redshirt year for those athletes, or may still have to offer a preferred walk-on for some athletes because of the slots and money being restricted because of the cascading effect from 2023 all the way up through 2020. Does that make sense to you? Now you got your 2026s come in, and there'll be less effect. So it'll be about 5 years. I'm saying about 5, but really there could be some bleed over for 6 because you got the red shirt and the preferred walk-on stuff for the 2025s and the dominated slots. So yeah, about 5 or 6 years, it may not go back completely to normal. That is, unless our governments decide to do something really stupid and lock it all down again, which they should never do in the first place. So it's a really annoying situation. And recruiting is a real pain in the butt. It's a lot of work and there's a lot of uncertainty, but you have to look at it strategically. I recommend to my athletes, especially those who are really getting affected by this, like if I have a basketball player who made the right call, he decided to reclass for 1 more year. He was a 2021 grad. He said, I'm going to reclass for 1 more year and I'm going to enter in 2022. Smart move. I have a baseball player who decided he's going to do the same thing. He's going to go, he's a 2022 grad. He's going to go to 2023. Smart move. That's how you do it. You have to give yourself that extra year. Look, an extra year in college is not the journey, it's the destination, okay? It's how you finish, not how you start. People take a long time. I myself, instead of going to West Point right out of high school, I was offered, I had like a 50-50 chance of getting into West Point. The coach was recruiting me heavily for football. And he looked at my grades, and could have been all A's, but I didn't really study as hard as I probably should have. And I got A's, B's, the occasional C, typical high school kid, stupid stuff, right? And the coach said, you have a 50-50 chance of getting into West Point. I said, okay. So I said, what about the prep school? He went, oh, you have a 98% chance of getting into the prep school. I said, then let's do that. So I went to the prep school. So I got in, I got to play football while I was there. I got to weight train while I was there. I learned about the military while I was there. I was able to take academic courses that would help me at West Point while I was there. Took my SATs a number of more times. It was fantastic. It was a good transition from high school to college. Being the college West Point, that's a huge transition, but it was nice to have that year. And I got paid for being an enlisted soldier for that 1 year, which was nice. I was a private. So I took that 1 year, and yeah, I didn't graduate in 92 like I thought I would. I graduated a year after. I was going to graduate a year after my class, but it didn't matter to me because I just wanted to get it done. And if it took me off course and I went in a different direction, but I achieved my goal, that's all that matters. Don't worry about taking an extra year. If you're allowed to take the extra year, or you want to reclass, and you're a 2022 grad, and you want to graduate in 2023, I strongly recommend it, because the opportunities will be more plentiful in 2023 than they are right now. If you were a 2021 grad, you're already in the mix. But if you're a 2021 grad and you've missed opportunities and you've kind of given up saying, well, everything's screwed up, then you can be helped now. You come to me and we can make things move, because it's never impossible. It just, you got to find a different way to do it, a different avenue. So that's the problem with gap year. It's affecting everybody. But the schools should be teaching these kids, or should have taught you athletes about this, but that's what I'm here for. If you have questions about it, call me, hey? Contact me at Scouting@Titan Scouting. Give us your number, we'll call you back. Ask as many questions as you want. Our number's on the website. Contact us there. Ask the questions that need to be asked. We can formulate a strategy and put you in the right direction. And instead of getting discouraged and disenchanted with the whole thing and getting bent out of shape, re-strategize, replan your attack. It's going to be fine. Trust me, I've been through this stuff before. Never like this, but I've been through a lot of the changes and the bureaucracy of recruiting and the business of it. So contact me. Scouting@Titan Scouting. You can contact me on Twitter, or, well, not so much Twitter, but yeah, you can still use Twitter. I really don't check it that much. Instagram, Facebook, @Titan Scouting. Ask me the questions you need to ask. If you need the help, let me know. You want us to market you, let me know. I'm Matt Roberts, Director of Scouting for Titan Scouting. I hope I answered your questions about the gap year. Now it's time for you to go on and work hard. Contact me and I'll help you know your goal.